Let's talk about how to live stream your NGO event. Very excited about this topic. I think it's an important one for all those nonprofit organizations out there. So let's jump in and talk about what you can do. Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Polkowski, and on this channel we talk all about how you can live stream for your business or your organization. And I'm really excited about today's topic because recently, these last few months here towards the end of the year, I have been doing a lot of NGO type events where we're live streaming as a way to fundraise for that organization. And I've taken a lot of good notes as we've done multiple events, and I think I have a pretty solid strategy for any NGO out there who is looking to fundraise for their organization. So we're going to jump in and talk about that here today. First thing is that I want to talk a little bit about why you might want to consider this. Many times, these nonprofits, these NGOs, you have some sort of big fundraising event throughout the year, and especially these last 2 years has been extremely difficult with COVID because you can't necessarily meet or have these in-person type of fundraising events that you're used to doing. So that's why many organizations that I've been working with have started to consider or have started to go kind of that live streaming fundraising route. And I think besides just being some way to start raising some money, it also offers a lot of really interesting options and can be extremely valuable for any fundraising event. So why many organizations that I'm talking to are now actually looking to go exclusively to that live streaming format, or to at least significantly incorporate it throughout their future fundraising events. And a big one is simply cost savings. A lot of times you have to rent or work really hard to get some sort of donation in terms of actual physical space, plus food, plus things like that. So your expenses can significantly add up. Whereas if you're doing a purely online event, oftentimes, unless you might be hiring someone to run your live stream, I do recommend that if you're considering on going to a bigger, more complicated event, consider hiring somebody. But that's still oftentimes going to be significantly less in terms of expenses than it would be to rent out a space, bring everyone to one location, and hold an event and a fundraising option that way. Plus, another really cool benefit is the fact that you're able to reach a much wider audience. You're able to reach people all across the world, or even in your own city, who just for whatever reason might not be able to make it to an in-person event, might not want to go to an in-person event, but still are going to be able to participate in the online form and the online fashion. So it just allows you to reach more people and have a longer lasting impact, because many of these videos, many of these events are going to be viewed a long time afterwards, or can be repurposed afterwards. You can continue to drive traffic throughout the year to these live streams, which is extremely beneficial in terms of creating some sort of sustainable revenue, some sustainable fundraising as an organization. So it's a great way to make your message last throughout the year and still bring in all those donations. But I didn't want you to just have to take my word for this. I wanted to talk to NGO out there. So that's why I did a little interview with Rena from Combat Blindness International to learn a little bit more about her experience with their recent virtual event, which was World Sight Day. This is the second year they've done it virtually. So let's talk a little bit and just hear some more about her experience.
So World Sight Day is a global event that is celebrated to bring awareness to the impact and the volume or just the fact that there are 1.1 billion people who are blind or suffer from some sort of vision loss. So it's a global awareness day. We use it at Combat Blindness International as our one day, our one really large fundraising event. It gives us a chance to let our supporters know what we've done all year, the impact that their support has had, and then also we usually have a fundraising goal.
But now let's talk about some of the key things you need to be considering with your event. And I would say one of the most important things that can often be overlooked because of the nature of online events, a lot of times people can see those as a little easier, more flippant, more in the moment. But one thing I would highly recommend to pull off a really great NGO event is to pre-plan, to treat it like you would for your in-person type of event and start planning just as early and put as much effort into that planning as you possibly can. I've worked with a couple, like I mentioned, a couple of organizations recently, and for one of them, we started planning back in March for an October event. So that's, several months there where we were planning, where we're thinking about things, and a lot of times the early ones weren't like too involved, but it was a lot of slowly figuring out what's going to happen. And I'm not saying you need to plan, a year in advance, but you should put a significant amount of effort into what does this event look like? What's the show flow going to be? How we're going to reach out to people? How are we going to organize everything? What stories are we going to tell? Who's going to be on camera? How do we want this to look? Thinking about all that in advance allows you to really up the production quality and to drive more people to your donation page, to drive more people to donate because of the way you're approaching these events. So I really think that pre-planning piece is going to be huge. So do not overlook that.
It does take planning. We had to really think about what it is our program would be, who would present, what was the information that we wanted to present, and how would it flow. And so we had several people involved. In addition to, we had someone who handled our videos and graphic design associated with those videos. We were really diligent about creating a script and who would the speakers be and practicing. Even though we have a teleprompter, you have to remember to smile and you have to remember to show enthusiasm when you're speaking and things like that. And then of course, Nick, having you there as our, helping us stream the event and being sort of our engineer on the ground, that was super helpful. And I would say like, just having you there was really, it was a huge weight off my shoulders and my staff's shoulders that we wouldn't have to handle that it would be done by a professional. And then we could just really concentrate on our organization and the story we wanted to tell.
The second big key, in my opinion, is to really focus on your CTAs, your calls to action. How are you going to be driving people to donate, figuring out what that looks like, what type of donations are you doing? Are you doing other elements like a silent auction, things like that? This is really what you kind of want to build a lot of your stream around, is how are we incorporating those calls to action and making sure they happen in multiple spots. You don't just necessarily want it to be at the very end. You want to have it built in throughout the stream so it's a kind of a natural element so people can easily know where to go, they can take action, they can support your organization in a super easy way. And of course, you don't want to make it too pushy, too, in your face, too salesy. That's why planning those ahead of time can make it a little smoother, so you're not just constantly pitching, but you're able to figure out strategic components where this is the perfect spot to drop that donation link, to have that come across the lower third of the screen, to incorporate a video that calls people to step up and take action, whatever it might be, depending on your flow for your event. But it's important that you think about that and consider it ahead of time and really build your show flow around that specific calls to action. And so why CTAs are honestly probably the big reason you're having the event. They're a big reason you want to make sure those are happening. I think really what your event should be built around, should consist mostly of, in terms of content wise, is sharing the stories from the people you're reaching, the organizations you're helping, who you are donating to. You want to share those stories. So whether that's interviewing live on camera people who you've worked with in the past, showing the art that the people you've worked with have created, or telling the stories of the people your organization has helped, those are going to be the things that really drive this live event and encourage people to go and donate, to support your organization. So be sure that the bulk, honestly, the biggest chunk, probably 75% of your live stream should be built around sharing stories, inspiring people to take action. So find ways to incorporate those. Again, it could be in an actual live interview where they're coming on the live stream either remotely or in person with you to share their story, or it could be pre-recorded elements. That's the one thing that I think can really up the quality of an NGO event, is to incorporate kind of that live stream piece, but bring in those outside videos, bring in those extra videos where you're talking to more people involved in the organization. Maybe we're having a keynoter from somebody who, you know, is a big supporter or who has an inspiring story around what you're talking about. Find ways to incorporate some of those things. You can do all of that with a live stream. You can have the live actual elements where you have people who are showing up in front of the camera, in person, interacting, being there live, engaging with the audience, which we'll get to more in a second, but then also incorporating those pre-recorded elements where it's very visual. You're showing the day in the life of your organization, something like that, where people can really emotionally connect to what's going on. That's what those pre-recorded videos can do. They can really help tell the story. And again, honestly, I think most of your live stream should consist of that type of content, with the specific but being built around those specific calls to action. So if you have a specific program, tell the story of somebody affected by that program, and then as soon as you wrap up that, give the call to action of this is how you can support this program by volunteering, by donating this specific way, by bidding in the silent auction, whatever it might be. Find smooth ways to flow into each other and build your stream around the stories of the people your organization is impacting. Two more pieces to really consider when you're building and live streaming your NGO event. And the first one of those is to consider how you're going to engage your audience. There are some really cool ways you can do that. You can do that, of course, is in your live stream. If you know you're going to have an audience, or you suspect you'll have an audience viewing live, or even just some people that you kind of seeded, some big supporters that you know will be there watching live, you can engage them that way. You can ask them questions directly. You can monitor the chat. You can have that engagement back and forth. If you're doing an interview, maybe you are serving as that audience member and asking their questions directly to that interviewee, so that people can feel more engaged, can feel more like they are participating fully in and present, their voices being heard. That's a great way to add that extra piece of engagement. It could be something like the Combat Blindness did for their World Sight Day, which is actually incorporating some watch parties. Let's hear a little bit about how they did that here.
Well, each year it's been better and better because we're learning, and I think the one thing that we tested this year that I'd like to perfect for next year is we tried doing kind of virtual tables or chat rooms where our board members could invite certain number of people and be in a specific chat room. And then that way they can watch the event, they can converse with one another as if they were literally sitting at a table. And so I'd like to explore that and kind of get better at that for next year. So we wanted to think of an option that would be kind of the one thing that you don't get necessarily from a virtual event is that intimate. You're at a table with a group of people. We have a board member. They're talking to their people about why they support our organization. And so we were looking for a way to, and while our board members always invite people to even our virtual events, we were looking for that. Like, how do we recreate that intimacy that you get from an in-person event? And so we thought, we started learning about the chat rooms, and we had a couple board members who hosted chat rooms. We created a link for them. They invited their friends and whoever they wanted, their guests, to this chat room. And then we were able to, one person shared their screen and streamed the event. But the nice thing was it was a group of like 10 people. So even while the event was going, they could talk to each other. They could put notes in the chat. They could ask questions of their host, and then we prepared the host with, a list of key points about the organization that they may not, as a board member, they know, but they may not remember on the spot. as well as some just general information so that they could answer questions pretty easily. So, and it worked out quite well. I think people enjoyed seeing their familiar faces. I think we were all craving connection with people, and so it was a nice hybrid of having a virtual event but still being able to see people.
I just think that's such a cool idea, and that's a great way to really build a community, build a strong relationships, and bring that in person kind of environment into a live streaming aspect where you're still able to gather together as a table, for example, and your board, your big supporters are able to bring more people in, really engage them, get them interested, get them connected, and get them excited about your organization and the people you are helping. And that fifth element is to really work on growing your reach. And this can be done in multiple different ways. Could be, again, something like the watch parties where you're having your board members or active supporters bringing people together, creating a further reach that way. It could be finding easy ways or easy clips to share out on social media. It's of course you clipping things and using things after the fact, but it could even be in the moment, making sure that you're reaching as big of an audience as possible in this virtual space. And that's where our sponsor for this video really comes in, which is Restream.io. I highly recommend checking them out. Restream is a great tool for an event like this because it allows you to go live in multiple different locations, in multiple different channels. You can go live on Facebook, you can go live on YouTube, you can go live on LinkedIn all at the same time, or even multiple Facebook groups, multiple Facebook pages all at the same time. So if you're collaborating as an NGO event, if you're collaborating with other organizations or have other sponsors, they could be going live on your same page using something like Restream Pairs, or just simply sharing and connecting their platform to yours as well at the exact same time. So you're able to reach all kinds of people even more than you would with a single live stream, which is why I really love them as a platform. Another really cool thing about Restream is if you are just getting started and don't have any other switching software, don't necessarily know what you're doing, you're able to use something like Restream Studio, which makes it super simple to add those extra, more professional elements like adding extra videos, pre-recorded videos, adding graphics, adding those call to actions in the lower third, elements like that. It makes it super simple when you're using Restream Studio. So again, go check out Restream. Highly recommend it. You can head on over to the link nickpolkowski.com/Restream. Learn more about the software there. Learn more about what that platform can do for you. Or if you want to learn a little bit more about some of the features in Restream, be sure to check out this video right here. This playlist, I actually talk about Restream quite a bit on this channel because it is such an amazing platform. So thank you, Restream, for sponsoring this video. And let's dive into a few more elements of what you can do when you're live streaming your NGO event.
It's actually been a really great experience, and having an in-person event is nice. You get to meet people, but the logistics involved and the cost involved to host a dinner or some kind of event, it's a lot. And so to be able to do this event, which of course took a lot of coordination as well, but we reached so many more people, particularly globally, being able to, stream it on various platforms. We found our reach was so much greater in terms nationally and internationally.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you feel was kind of the best part? What was kind of your favorite part about just a virtual event?
I think it's the fact that you can present things in so many different ways. You can speak live to someone. You can present, for our keynote, that person was in South Africa. So we were able to pre-record their talk and combine it with some, adding some notes about our own organization, which really enhanced the program altogether. You just can incorporate so many aspects, which just seem to flow more seamlessly than an in-person event.
So I think it's pretty obvious that I'm a big fan of live streaming these events, and I want to really encourage you to consider live streaming for your NGO. And maybe it's live streaming instead of doing your big normal in-person event like we heard from Combat Blindness, or maybe it's taking bringing your in-person event and also bringing it online as well. I think that's a great way to expand the reach, but still have those in-person events if you're able to right now. But I highly encourage you to go test it out, whether it's one of those two ways or simply doing an extra little bonus mini event or mini live stream in order to help reach more people, connect with a larger community than you're able to otherwise with only running those in-person events. Highly encourage you to go check it out, see what you're able to do, put some thought to it. I'd love to hear what you're interested in doing. Leave a comment below letting me know which element you're going to try or what you're going to do for your next fundraising event. And if you want to learn more about live streaming, be sure to subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to check out this playlist right here where I talk a little bit more about my top 5 accessories for live streaming. I'll see you in the next one.